Inferno ends Jon Pertwee's first season as the Doctor on an absolute high. This is a great story, and easily my favorite one from the third Doctor so far. As a 7-part serial, this really does feel as though it has been somewhat padded, and it has similar pacing to the previous 2 stories in this season, and the truth is that this probably could have been a 4-part or 5-part story, but it is a 7-part one, which isn't actually such a bad thing, because while there were aspects of this story that felt unnecessary or like they could have been cut down, those were kind of sprinkled throughout the serial and didn't really detract from the parts of this one that were great. So the premise of this one from the first episode is that there's some form of drill digging down towards the Earth's crust, and there's this guy in charge of it. His name is Professor Stallman, and he doesn't want the drilling to stop for any reason at all, regardless of any dangers. And basically this character is just really stupid so as this story can actually happen, even though he's a professor.
Another recruit to your cause, no doubt.
What cause?
Well, his crusade to bring this whole operation to a grinding halt, Mr. Sutton.
Professor, please.
But he's a dedicated man, you see, dedicated to stifling us with overcaution and an overabundance of experts and advisors. We're drowning in them.
And in addition to Professor Stallman, there's a couple of more reasonable characters that aren't complete buffoons, and those ones range from pretty good to bad. There's one character in particular, Petra Williams, who I really thought was poorly written. With that said, the Doctor is great as always. I love when he insults people.
That computer is oversensitive. Its data is unreliable.
You talk about the thing as though it was your maiden aunt.
My own calculations are more specific.
Yes, well, I'll tell you something that should be of vital interest to you, Professor.
But what?
That you, sir, are a nitwit.
It always makes me laugh, and he's still got that charm and twinkle in his eye, which I adore. And also we see the first usage of Venusian karate or Venusian aikido that appears in Doctor Who, obviously largely used by the third Doctor, so yeah, that's fun to see pop up. Liz is still a good companion. The actress gets more than normal to do this time around, which was very good. In fact, most of the cast gets more to do than usual. But yeah, I'm liking her as a companion. She's been enjoyable and has good rapport with Jon Pertwee, so yeah, good on her. So basically there's this green goo that's coming up from the drilling site, and for whatever reason it actually turns people into monsters. So that's a rather important element of the plot which affects characters and what's going on, but ultimately I never felt that had a satisfying resolution. There's a very important thing that happens in episode 3, and if you don't know what basically the main thrust of this story that kicks off in episode 3 is, then I'll recommend you stop watching this review now and skip to the time as shown on screen. If you're sticking with me though, then we will continue talking about this story. So yeah, this serial is an alternative dimension one, which is honestly so cool. I absolutely love these kinds of stories when they're done right because they're just so much fun.
Let's make another trial run.
After all that?
Because of all that. Wonder where I was exactly. Where I was going.
Wherever you were, you very nearly didn't get back.
This is basically Doctor Who's first dip into another dimension, and honestly, I think they did a great job because this story is really fun while also being a serious serial that you can sit back and enjoy as all hell breaks loose, which is exactly what happens. It shows what would go down if the Doctor failed to stop the drill from penetrating the Earth's crust. It shows everything going wrong, which it can do because it's another dimension, and I honestly think that's so cool.
Tell me, Mr. Sutton. How thick are those walls?
Well, thick enough. Ferrous concrete, steel plating, asbestos sheeting, the lot. It'd stand up to an atomic blast.
Compared to the forces that you people have unleashed, an atomic blast would be like a summer breeze.
I love these kinds of stories so much when they're pulled off right, and this one really was. I just eat this stuff up, and I really did here too. So it's cool seeing all these characters a little bit differently. And even though a lot of the specifics of an alternate dimension don't make sense to me, I'm able to roll with it and have fun, even though sometimes it doesn't make a ton of sense. Liz was my favorite character from the other dimension because I thought Caroline John did a great job in that part, and she does feel distinctly removed from the Liz that we know, while also possessing some of her better qualities.
You are Elizabeth Shaw.
I am Section Leader Elizabeth Shaw, yes.
Not a scientist?
No.
Oh. This is fascinating. So many similarities, yet so many differences.
The other one I want to touch on is the Brigadier and his alternate version. It made me realize, hang on, he's not that different. Similar to Liz, deep down they share certain characteristics, but with the Brigadier, it just made me realize I don't actually find him to be that interesting of a character. I know that's blasphemy to have my own opinion on Doctor Who, but I just don't find him that interesting. He's basically just this tough military brigadier, and I haven't seen him change or grow much, and while he still has room to, he hasn't so far, and yeah, I'm not a huge fan of him. Earlier this season, I thought he might be, but he never did. He had some enjoyable moments, and I have liked him at parts.
What, none of them?
Fifth from the left, third row.
Yes, well, if it's true, I can see why you grew that moustache.
He's not a bad one, he's fine, he's just not interesting, and he's in every single serial, and it makes him feel stale. So yeah, sorry to the Brigadier fans, but he's just not gelling with me yet, although he kind of was earlier because I was enjoying him, but it's gotten to the point where I realized there's not that much interesting about him, really. He can be charismatic at times, and that's like it for me. He just doesn't offer much to interest me as a viewer or entertain me all that much, which is a legitimate shame. I did feel that it took the Doctor a little too long to actually figure out what was going on, but honestly, that's a minor nitpick, and it's forgiven by the fact that this is our first story of this kind, and possibly the first time the Doctor has entered an alternate dimension. So, not a huge complaint, but something I thought was worth mentioning. Overall, I thought this was a great serial, mostly well-paced, really enjoyable, and everything done in the I found myself thoroughly entertained by. Most of the characters work well, although there are a couple that don't click with me. This story has a couple of issues largely made up for by everything that works in the serial. I found this to be a great one, and I'm going to give Inferno a rating of 8.75 out of 10. And yeah, that's that for the review of Inferno. Be sure to leave me your thoughts on this story down below. I had an absolute blast with it. I loved seeing such a different Doctor Who story, and I'm curious as to your thoughts. If you'd like to leave them down below, then feel free to, and I will be joining you again in 1 week's time for a review/overview of Season 7 of the show. I have plenty of thoughts. There's only 4 stories. If you've seen these reviews, then you have a general idea of what I'm going to say, but I definitely have some new things to bring to the table, so I do hope to see you around for that, but if not, that's totally cool, so long as you know that I appreciate your time here today. And with that said, thank you very much for watching. Take care, and have a lovely week.
Ferrous concrete, steel plating, asbestos sheeting.